double shifters, which means we're going to be shifting supply and demand at the same time. So there's going to be 4 clips to this video, and each one's going to show something different. So this first one is going, I'll just keep it in green. This first one is going to be an increase in supply and an increase in demand. So just like every graph, we get started. Ooh, oh boy. All right, we get started drawing our P's and Q's. Just a little bit of technical difficulty this morning. All right, so we've got our labels. You can barely see the Q, but I think you get the point. So we're doing an increase in supply and demand. But the first thing we need to do is we need to draw our original graph. So we're going to do supply to the sky, S1, and we're going to do demand, D1. We're going to use purple to label our E1, Q, E1, E, E1. And like I've already said, we're going to increase both supply and demand. And if you'll remember from yesterday, an increase is always a shift to the right. So we're shifting both supply and demand to the right. And this is where it's really important because we're shifting both of them at the same time. There's not going to be an E2 and an E3. There's only going to be a new E2. So I'm going to shift supply to the right, label it S2, and then I'm going to shift demand to the right. I'm drawing my arrows to remind me of which way I'm going, and I'm going to label this new line D2. So now we need to find the new equilibrium. So we need to find where S2 meets D2, and that's going to be right here. And so we're going to label it E2. We're going to find our quantity equal. We're going to find our new quantity equilibrium, and then you'll notice price equilibrium stays the same. So when we see an increase in supply and an increase in demand, our quantity goes up, but there is no change in price. So this is a double shifter with an increase in supply and an increase in demand. This next one is going to be a double shifter, and it's going to be a decrease in supply and a decrease in demand. So first thing is to draw your graph. You have your P, and then you have your Q. Then I'm going to draw supply to the sky, call it S1. Then I'm going to draw demand, label it D1. And then I'm going to label this E1. Find my QE, find my QE1, find my PE1, and so I've labeled it all. And like I said, up here we're doing a decrease in both supply and demand. So I'm going to come back to supply, and I'm going to shift it to the left because all decreases are always a shift to the left. So I'm going to draw my arrows to the left of my S1. I'm going to label it S2. And then I'm going to do the same thing with demand. So I'm going to shift demand to the left. So I'm going to draw arrows to the left of demand. And then I am going to label it D2. And then I'm going to find my new equilibrium. So I'm looking where S2 meets D2, and it happens to be right here. So I'm going to draw my new quantity equilibrium. And then you'll see here again, price equilibrium stays the same. So a decrease in supply and a decrease in demand equals a decrease in quantity and no change in price. So as always, please look for, oops, I didn't label E2. All right, always look for that new equilibrium where the new lines are. So we're looking where S2 is and where D2 is. And this is your decrease in both supply and demand. Next up is an increase in supply and a decrease in demand. So start every graph off the same with your price and quantity axis. Label your Q, label your P. Then draw supply to the sky, and then draw your demand. And then the next thing you're going to do is label your equilibrium. So we're labeling E1, then we're labeling Q, E1, and then we're labeling PE1. And like I said, we are increasing supply and decreasing demand. So the first thing I'm going to do is increase supply. And so just as like we've always discussed, an increase is always a shift to the right, no matter which one you're doing. So I'm going to draw my arrows to the right of S1, label it S2, and now I'm going to do a decrease in demand. And so that is going to be a shift to the left, because a decrease is always a shift to the left. So I'm drawing new arrows to the left of D1, drawing my line, and labeling it D2. And you know what I didn't do? I didn't change my color, so I'm going to redraw that for you because it's easier to see when they are different shades. So again, to the left of D1, I'm drawing my new line, and I'm labeling it D2. Then we're going to come back and label our new equilibriums. So we're finding where S2 meets D2, which happens to be right here in the middle. And so I'm going to label it E2. You'll see here our quantity equilibrium is now the same, but price equilibrium has changed. So this is a decrease in price and no change in quantity. Again, always look for where S2 meets D2. Always remember an increase is a shift to the right, while a decrease is a shift to the left. And this is an increase in supply, decrease in demand. This next graph is going to be a decrease in supply and a increase in demand. So I'm going to draw my graph the same way I always do, drawing my P's and Q's. All right. And then changing my blue crayon so that I can do supply to the sky and label it S1, changing to my red crayon so I can label it D1 for demand, and then changing to my purple so I can label it E1, draw the line down to the quantity axis and call it QE1, draw a line to the price axis and call it PE1. And then I'm decreasing supply and I am increasing demand. So first I'm going to decrease supply. Remember, a decrease in supply is always a shift to the left, or a decrease in general is always a shift to the left. So I'm drawing my arrows to the left of my old supply, and then I'm drawing my new S2. All right, and then I'm drawing my increase in demand, which is going to be a shift to the right. So I'm drawing arrows to the right of my old demand, and I'm going to draw my new line. I'm going to call it D2. Look at that magic down there. And then I'm going to find where S2 meets D2, which happens to be right here, calling it equilibrium 2, and drawing new lines to the price and quantity axis. You'll see that the price equilibrium has changed, but quantity equilibrium has not. So at the end of the day, price equilibrium, or price will increase, no change in quantity, and this is for a decrease in supply and an increase in demand. So this is another double shifter.